Hi, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day so far. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Chantal, Director of Membership Services at St. Joseph Media. It's so great to have you all here for RTL Insider Fireside Chat with special guest Weyni Mengesha, Artistic Director of Soulpepper Theater Company, for a discussion on the future of artists and their role in rebuilding the country post-COVID-19. Here are some quick housekeeping rules. Please make sure to keep your mic muted and cam turned off until the Q&A session starts. But we encourage you to ask any questions you may have in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. Now I'd like to introduce our host, Jason Magnoy, Head of Business Development at St. Joseph Media. Thank you both for your time today, and take it away, Jason.
Thanks, Chantal. Really excited to be hosting Weyni today. So just to give you a sense of who Weyni Mengesha is the Artistic Director of Soulpepper Theater Company and an award-winning director known for her groundbreaking work and community engagement. Weyni directed two of the most popular English-speaking shows to come out of Canada in the last 2 decades, The Kink in My Hair, which was at Mervish Productions, and Kim's Convenience at Soulpepper. Both have gone on to break box office records, tour nationally and internationally, and both having been developed into television shows playing on CBC, Global, and Netflix. Other recent work has been seen in London, New York, Los Angeles, and across Canada, garnering an NAACP nomination for Best Direction, as well as multiple Dora nominations and awards for Outstanding Direction. She's been an instructor at the National Theatre School of Canada and was co-artistic director and teacher with the Amy Project for 7 years. In 2017, Weyni was named one of the Women in View's 5 in Focus, identifying 5 rising film directors across Canada. And she was recently named one of the 50 most influential people in Toronto by Toronto Life magazine. Thank you so much for joining us, Weyni.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, how are you? How have you been holding up during the pandemic?
Yeah, I've been okay. It's been so busy, so it's been I think I don't have enough time to really even think about that question. But I have my 2 boys, 5 and 7, so they've been keeping my spirits up, and of course, the creativity has just it's been a necessity to keep us going in this time. So that's been inspiring.
That's good. And I mean, you've had, just your bio alone, you've had an incredible artistic career. So tell us about your journey and how you landed at Soulpepper.
My journey started, I would say my journey started with activism, like from a young age in high school. I never sort of grew up traditionally going to theater. My parents never took me to theater. My mom's a teacher and a big reader. Literature was important in our house, but not traditional theater. I used it as a tool in high school when making work around activism. And then a theater teacher told me to apply for theater school. I went to York as an actor. By my second year, I knew I wanted to actually create work. And so from that point on, that's where I started to work with Trey Anthony and build The Kink in My Hair. I met Ince, who wrote Kim's Convenience at York University. We developed that project. And yeah, from then on, those projects, they sort of catapulted my career at a young age. We were doing Mervishes at 20. I was 23 when we did the Mervishes with Kink. Oh. And then there I found out about the Soulpepper Academy. And that was something where my first connection with Soulpepper. And so from then on, I just kind of, made a lot of my own work, and teaching was always really important to me because my teachers really inspired me. So I worked with artists mentoring youth and did a lot of youth work. So I would say, yeah, it was, I guess through activism and this coming back as artistic director was a bit of a homecoming since I started off here in the Academy 12 years ago, and have directed many shows for Soulpepper. Even though I was in the States for a long time, I would come home to direct shows here.
So when you took over Soulpepper was in gigantic trouble. So what did you do to strengthen and redefine the theater company?
I think Soulpepper, its artistic merit was never really in question. So there was not a lot of, we already had a lot of people I think a lot of appreciation for the art that we make and all of the artists. Soulpepper is made up of 12 founding members and a large ensemble, and people I think had never wavered from that, the appreciation of that. And I think what we needed to do was continue to build trust, more as an institution, and our policies in our institution for safety. So before I even got here, a lot had been done with the code of conduct and statement of promises. And what I wanted to do was really continue to take that work and make sure that it was accessible and that there was a lot of sort of more community engagement. And I felt like that was also important on a systemic level as well. So we changed our ticket prices. We now have $25 tickets available at every show. We've done some even a bit more radical things where we have 25 and under are free to come to any show that we have here. We had to also look at even our pay structure and make sure that there was equity there, which was important to me. I felt like at the basic level, like it is one of the ways that you can look at value and how an institution values artists, and I think that that's one of the fundamental pieces you have to look at. So there's a lot of systemic stuff that we had to do in the last year and a half, and then also just the way that we sort of, I kept saying to we put into our strategic plan that radical inclusion was one of our values. So these are the ways that we had sort of our radical gestures of welcoming, the ticket prices, whenever we did season launches, we had community gatherings, so large invitations to the community to celebrate with us, for them, and at those parties, we made sure that sort of the music, the food, all of the culture was representative of the whole city. And so people understood that this was a season for me, which can seem like a small thing, but from the way that the audiences and the art and the community members responded, it was a simple gesture, but it went a long way. And in the year and a half, we've seen our audience shift quite a bit. And we've had a really big uptake with our under 25 program. So yeah, it's been exciting. So the big job to me was rebuilding the trust in the community within the artistic and the larger community of audiences.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I saw one of the first community gatherings, it just seemed like it was a completely different place. I was so shocked. I was basically shocked by it. It was incredible. But how have the core audience of Soulpepper felt about these? Because the thing is, in the end, they are very big changes. So how has the audience changed, and how has the core audience responded to what you've been doing?
I would say in general, quite positive. I think, remember Soulpepper started 20 years ago with lesser known classics. So it was never sort of a commercial company. You had to sort of really be interested in the art and trust the artist and the work that was being done. It was not really by a commercial title that we got pulled in. So we've always had quite adventurous audiences, people who are quite curious, people who there's a lot of uptake in our audience enrichment programs before and after shows. They want to dive deeper into the text and they want to understand the writers. So we've had a very, I've always known that about our audiences, which is what I like about this company is, there's that dialogue and wanting to go deeper into the work of the artists. And it's a very artist-centered company. So, in the same way, this is sort of a challenge too, in that we're just diversifying the work that we're offering. And, I've seen it. I've had a lot of audience members come up to me and be really grateful. I mean, I think we've always had diversity. I think it's just in the way that we are celebrating it. Maybe it's a little bit more front and center. But our production this year of Brothers Size, which was by a Black playwright, won Best Production at the Doras. We had 24 nominations, and it was all kinds of people represented, like most diverse pool of representatives in those Dora nominations. And even Black Lives Matter, in the way that we have been unequivocally supporting the movement. We've had people write in and send donations to help us to do the work that we're doing, and some of our oldest donors who just have stepped up and said, I want to support. So I've been encouraged. there's also been a couple of emails, people who from the beginning were skeptical about what I was doing. But I would say I could count them on one hand. But generally, we've had a really moving response from our audiences and our supporters.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you became the artistic director, I was like, wow, like I was just noticing, like, first off, I thought that was like a huge move. I was like, that was a nice glow up for Soulpepper there, getting you, which was amazing. But one thing that I've noticed was the cultural leadership is changing in Toronto in particular. So we have Nina at the Factory, Ravi Jain is a big leader in the theater community, Brendan Healy at Canadian Stage, Marjorie Chan at Pass Marai, you. When Richard Rose retires, there won't be that many, cisgender straight white men at the helm of the major non-for-profit theaters in the city, at least. Do you think that this change in leadership is enough to ensure that BIPOC artists are included, or they feel more welcome in the industry? Or is this a nature of, look, theater is just a really small industry. Not everyone's going to get a chance to be a part of it. But I'd love to hear like how you feel this leadership change is going to evolve accessibility for artists of color.
I think the change in leadership is a part of it. I also think this time in our moment, where we're sort of all collectively investigating and auditing what it really means, because diversity is not that interesting to me. I think we've always kind of done that. What's interesting to me is representation in a meaningful way, because we'll see at the theater schools that there's diversity, there's people of color in these programs, but you'll hear so many stories. And of course, now you're hearing at all the schools, people complain, talking about things that they were too scared to speak about before. Ultimately, it's the teachers. It's not even, it doesn't even have to be the teachers. It's the curriculum, they just have to be able to identify if there's a complete void of their existence and everything that they're teaching. There's just no signs pointing to the fact that there's going to be a career for them. And so I think that's changing in the fact that we're having really at a high level, we're all having discussions, even artistic director to artistic director. We've been talking to each other and saying like, we've all been talking about it for so long, I mean, the mayor talks about it, diversity in this city is like no other. So we just have to make those collective changes so that our cultural institutions are ones that people talk about internationally and say, wow, they talk about that already when like you ride the subway in Toronto and it's like no other city, but you walk into our cultural institutions and you still don't really experience that. But that's changing and in a beautiful way, but yeah, it does have to sort of happen in the core, because you'll have students entering or you'll have artists entering, and if they don't feel like their voice is being heard, they won't say that. The sustainability won't be there. And you see that again and again with so many people of color dropping out of theater schools or out of ensembles.
And I noticed that because like there's that letter going around, that open letter from the students who'd graduate from National Theater School, who were students of color, just talking about some of the systemic changes that could happen at that organization. And I look back at my time when I was at National Theater School, and I was never bugged by any of my experiences there. And I was like, there weren't very many Asian writers that had been through that school for a very, very long time. But in terms of just that idea of the systemic, getting into the institutions, you've taught at National Theater School. How do we do that? How do we create that pipeline of individuals, that pipeline of talent that should be in our institutions teaching the next generation of our theater artists?
I think you just do it. Sherry Johnson said, come and teach. And I did. And, I taught a diverse array of classics. And and I still know those artists that I taught in that class. And I think people sort of, we tend to move towards the familiar, and we can sort of, the same people get hired everywhere else, and people just have to take a risk. And that's what we do as artists, right? We do take risks, and we have to, I shouldn't even say it's a risk, because it's been proven again and again that actually the richness of diversity, it doesn't just make sense, it makes dollars. It is an investment because it makes rich work if there's many perspectives at the table. So I just think people are just sort of realizing that the time has to be made to make that a priority. You know, we've all, as theater artists, everyone's up against the same problems, where there's many different companies in the city and not as much funding as we need, and we're constantly racing against just staying afloat. And so this moment of pause has sort of given everybody time to sort of really take a look at what we're talking about as commitments, but how are they actually trickling down to something practical?
Yeah.
And I think people are making really incredible changes.
And my next question then goes towards, like, obviously you're seeing a lot of these big brands like Nike and Twitter. They're all like targeting their customers, and they're noticing that, yeah, our customers really love progressive ideas. They love marketing. In terms of Canadians' theater audiences, in particular donors, like my background in the administration side and culture is through fundraising. So I encounter donors. They're very interesting. They're older. They're very, very conservative. Do you think that they'll continue to support as generously now if a lot of the major institutions just radically change in terms of just the types of programming and the types of representation that they're seeing on stage?
I think we have to hope they will. I think we have to give them the chance, right? I've had a lot of donors tell me that they're interested in it. I've also spoken directly about the fact that now is the time now is a really important time to support the arts, because the arts is going through a change and it will be more vulnerable. And now it's a really important time to make a meaningful to support meaning in a meaningful way. So I speak very candidly about that with the donors as every opportunity I can, because I think there was a tendency even when I got here to go, oh, you know, sometimes when people see a poster and it's a Black artist, they think, oh, it's niche or it's something culturally specific, as opposed to just theater, you know. And so, oh, if she's there, it's going to be specifically culturally specific or niche. And I think we just have to push and say, you know, I'm going to bring who I am, yes, but I've been raised in the same theater community as everybody else, and we are going to make the theater that we make. And you know, have a look at my resume before. There's been some, you know, things that people have said to me that have been like, you know, I mean, frustrating, and about the fear of it being, are you going to turn it all too Afrocentric, or those things. People's fear has surfaced. And so but I take the time to talk to them, and I take the time to talk to my board and say, you've hired me. I'm the only Black artistic director across Canada in category A. It actually is a move of activism. Like, and it actually is something that you have to step into and complete the process, because it means that you're, you know, people might step back and be questioned and want to see what happens. But in reality is, in Canada, when our companies are 30 to 40 to 50% private donations, you can't sit back and watch what someone does, because someone can't do anything if you sit back. You know, they can only do less than what the company was able to do before. So I've tried to really articulate that as much as I can, so people understand what this moment means.
Have you been noticing, like you just said that you're the only Black artistic director at an A house in Canada. Have you been noticing just a change in terms of the Black community coming to the theater a bit more, and also entering that philanthropic space? Because, you know, again, looking at my background in fundraising, arts philanthropy is very white and it's very old. So have diverse communities been stepping to the plate in terms of giving to the arts?
Slowly, you know, again, we just hired our first Black board member just got on
Wow.
board. We've just got to gender parity this year. You know, I've only been here a year, so these are definitely things I'm pushing for, but and I'm slowly making it happen. And I'm definitely talking to Black community members who have capacity about the importance of this. You know, again, like, we have not been on the stages as a Black community to know that this is a place that we should prioritize our investments. That's just the truth. And you know, I talk about the importance of culture and what it does what it can do for the next generation. And I'm just trying to refocus this as a priority place for investment and build community. Again, something that, you know, I'm trying to like really sort of scream from the rooftops and articulate because it's a reality that, again, just like I'm having to build back trust with the communities and to really bring in new communities, I'm doing the same thing with the donor communities. And, you know, I have, like, one of the first things I did talking about change is shifting our marketing money around, because I put it onto shows that don't necessarily have those community members come. And we saw a really positive outcome with that. With Brother Size, actually, with the show that won this year, we had a celebrated Black filmmaker, Charles Officer, make a trailer for that. And everyone was kind of like, that's a little bit overboard. I was like, how is it overboard? If you I'm looking at the history here of how shows of color are selling, and something needs to be done. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to invest in making a show like this if you're not going to invest in actually inviting those communities in a radical way. And this is a moment, again, like, I'm like, this is a threshold we have to pass. And so we have to invest in this moment, and then it will become muscle memory. But until it does, our actions have to follow up our ideology.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been just hearing about the incredible work you're doing for Soulpepper, just the infrastructure across the board, top to bottom, and how you're changing that theater company. It's super difficult. And then layered on top of that is what theater is facing as a medium in general. The core offering is that we get to be together in a theater. That is going to be not part of the core offering for a while. So how has Soulpepper pivoted during this time right now, COVID? How have you pivoted? How have you changed your offering at Soulpepper, and how has it been going?
Funny enough, well, as you know, I just literally ran into the library. I was downstairs shooting a special for CBC for Emancipation Day. So I'm moving into television as well. And, you know, we already have exec producer credit for Kim's Convenience as we moved that from, and I've directed on Kim's on the TV show. I've also directed on other TV shows. I've made films. So I also happen to just have that in my toolkit. And I'm just bringing my producers, you know, into that fold. So we're co-producing with CBC on this show. Which is great because all of my producers are shadowing, you know, CBC producers, and I have DOPs down there, and I'm directing, but I also have some of my assistant theater directors watching me do this. So I'm trying to, you know, we're going to diversify what we do. And I think, you know, even when we do all come back together, there's no reason to not continue to use that skill set. And so we've been doing things online. To me, the exciting thing about this moment, you know, trying to look at glass half full, is that you can travel anywhere for free, you know. So doing Fresh Ink, we do every Friday night. We do, right now it's Thursday for summer season. It's Thursday nights at 5 p.m. We hear from 2 playwrights from anywhere around the world, and they read us a little piece of their work. We get to know them, and it's just exposing our audiences to new writers and new ideas. And also through that, we get to hear how artists are creating and thinking during COVID. We also have coffee concerts, which is sort of like these little 5-minute concerts. You can have a coffee and hear for our artists. Again, we want to continue to engage our artists and to bring a little joy to the community. We just partnered with Tapestry and created box concerts, which is, we literally created a sort of a huge box that's being pulled by a trailer that can come to anybody's house, and we perform an opera singer or a short theater piece. We originally built this to give back to frontline workers and also long-term care facilities. So we're performing outside of them and just bringing some joy to you know, personally, I feel like our civic responsibility is to do that in this time and to figure out how we can fill voids as theater artists. So those are some of the ways that we've been pivoting. And we just got a green light from CBC to create a kids show, Soulpepper Kids.
Wow.
In development now.
Well, that's amazing. And that takes me to my next question, which is, so Soulpepper has really redefined its footprint. It's redefined its offering. It's in a lot of different channels. So then what will the role of a major cultural institution like Soulpepper be as we rebuild Toronto, as we rebuild the country, and how can theater artists contribute? I mean, one thing that I struggle with is, isn't this a time for artists to be making a lot of art about this moment as opposed to, say, doing social media activism? But what do you think the role of Soulpepper is going to be as Canada emerges from this?
Yeah, I do think we are a cultural hub. So I think we will always have our eye on stories, because there will be the sort of top level stories that concern people on an economic level, but there'll also be the things that people don't see, the invisible, some of the stories that are happening on the ground where people are struggling. And I feel like sometimes it's our job to make sure some of those stories also rise to the top. So, constantly, just because we won't be doing as many large scale shows, we'll be out in the community, engaging with the community, collecting those stories. We have different programs that we're running right now, commissioning different writers to create stories. So documenting this time, I think, is part of our role, and then connecting people across the city. So myself and Brendan Healy, who's the artistic director of Can Stage, have been holding forums for artistic directors from across the city every other week, and we just talk and we try to advocate for artists, and talk about what we're doing. I think we have to come out of this stronger as a sector. So just to communicate and to figure out how we can help the healing process. I think a lot about kids who are not going back to school, who haven't seen their friends, who are confused about this moment. I have children myself, 5 and 7. I want to play a role in that, which is kind of why I focus on Soulpepper kids. And so I think healing, I think connecting people in the city, public art, those are the things that I think are going to be important, and not to mention, putting a little boost into the economy once we can get some people traveling again.
And that takes me to my next question, which is about resilience. I always hear about how theater is in gigantic trouble. It's like every year it's in gigantic trouble. Every organization is on the edge, or there's a deficit, or so in terms of, a lot of the things that I've noticed too, even on the work that I'm doing at where I'm working, it's like we've pivoted our business, and all of a sudden our revenue structure is completely different. How we're trying to keep the lights on has radically changed. So separate of government support, like, what can the theater sector do right now to redefine its business model and to build resilience during this time?
We have to learn new skills. That's why we're downstairs at CBC. We have to learn new skills. I mean, we're flexible, we're creative. We can't be afraid. I know there's some purists who are like, we can't just work digitally. That's not what we are. And I get that, but who knows what that morphs into? It morphs into the next, evolution of some hybrid piece that we create, or, we just can't, how it is in theater school. Yes. And right. You have to take this and think of it as a creative provocation and figure out where to go. So I keep telling my team, we have to, even this idea of 6 feet apart, we have to think about that as a provocation. How do we create work that's nimble, that can actually have audiences separate without it sort of just feeling like a bad version of what we used to do? How do we make a new version that allows that to happen, that still feels creative? I think that there are things like the international piece that we can sell to a wider audience, that we have spaces to shoot in, that I think there are audiobooks, radio, there's many different mediums that we can be working in, and Soulpepper already has dabbled in many mediums. So I'm just trying to strengthen our ability and our skill set to do that.
It's almost like Soulpepper becoming this omni-channel streaming service, which I think is phenomenal. But so what does next season look like for Soulpepper? I mean, in terms of a best case scenario and also a worst case scenario. Can you share anything with us in terms of what your plans are?
Ask me that, Jason. A bit of all of those things that I mentioned, for sure. We are waiting, of course, to get a bit more clarity on stage 3 and how specifically how that's going to work for us. But I think about outdoor events. I am holding on to a lot of pieces of my season, and some of them I'm letting go because they're just not going to make sense. With the limitations of having only 50 people inside, the revenue structure is just not going to make sense. And until we understand what the subsidy will be, what support will come in, we can't really make those changes. So I'm trying to, I'm thinking about outside, I'm thinking about radio, I'm thinking about TV, as you know. And some of those shows, I'm thinking about them just configured in a different way, not traditional theater configuration.
So that takes me to my question, which is the people who are here today and myself, everyone who loves the arts, what can we do? Like, what can we do to support theater right now? I mean, we can give, but is there anything else that we can do starting today that can help strengthen theater and make sure that it's still around as we move forward?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the theaters are moving into digital and have some work happening in the digital sphere. I think amplifying that and supporting that. I think it's I think it's going to be clearer for us to even be able to direct people to support in a different way once we know what the actual protocols are going to be, a bit more. But I think showing up today, this is incredible, that people are here to hear from us, to know what we're doing, to join Soulpepper's newsletter and to keep in touch with what we're doing. And I think that, hopefully people are ready for the adventure, because we'll be bringing, new things and with new ideas. We're hoping that audiences stay curious and experiment with us.
So my next question is, we killed it. We got the vaccine. We just took it. We just got the vaccine. We're all good now. What's the first thing that you're going to be doing in a post-pandemic world?
A huge community gathering. We need to dance. We need to, I think it's going to be, it's amazing. It sounds like a fantasy, right? With everybody just being able to be free in the same room. It's crazy. I watch TV now and I'm like, don't get too close. It's affected. It's amazing how it's affected us. But I think that, that's of course all I'm thinking about is how we can share space and celebrate.
And I love what you said about the role that theater and the arts are going to play in terms of just healing. Very seldom do I take a step back and try to really understand what this moment has actually done to me on an emotional and spiritual level, because you're right. I probably a lot of this work that we're doing in the digital space is just to keep myself distracted from it. But healing is going to be a huge part of, I think, what theater artists and what theater is going to do. And I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be really positive. So now I'd love to open it up for questions. So if anyone has a question for Weyni, please feel free to turn on your cameras, say hello, and you can ask your question now.
Hi, Raj.
Is Raj going to ask a question?
Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, Weyni. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. Raj knows everything about me already.
Weyni is doing an amazing job, and I'm glad you did this, Jason. I'm so happy for that. And I think this is exactly what we need to continue to do to challenge how we are going to deal with the situation as is at the moment and as it is going to evolve over time. And this too shall pass.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, if it looks like Weyni, I think you did it. I think you answered every single question. People had oh wait, Diane has a question. Thank you, Diane. You can turn your unmute yourself.
I am on your, oh God, sorry. I love the cabaret series, which seemed to me to be something that could be readily adapted to other medium. I wondered what you were thinking about doing with it.
Sorry, I missed the first part of it. The collaboration, did you say?
No, sorry, the cabaret series with the mixed sort of short form hour and a half. I loved it. So.
Oh, great. Yeah. I think that was, we've been sort of trying to do many different things to see how they work. And thanks for saying that, Diane. I thought that was also successful. And we're going to try to do more things like that. So this piece that I'm shooting today is will be performed. It's on television, Weyni. It's a new medium. It will be broadcast. It's on CBC on August 1st for Emancipation Day. And it's a similar kind of thing where we have different segments. We have dancers, we have spoken word artists, and they're different segments. So look out for that. We're going to continue to do pieces like that. I mean, I think the next thing is to move away from sort of the Zoom performances. And get into, now that we can kind of be 10 in a space, we have like our COVID police here, we all have masks on downstairs, and we're keeping our space, but we're able to more artfully tape the work. And I think I personally have been craving that. So I'm just trying to push us to move towards a more poetic capturing of the work digitally.
We have a question from Joseph, and that's perfect from your response there. What have been some of your biggest learning curves when it comes to the digital pivot at Soulpepper?
Yeah, of course. Of course, at first it was just the Zoom bombing, trying to figure that out. Luckily, somebody else took the hit before us, and we all pivoted. But I think it hasn't been, we have really savvy tech folks here, some real great tech nerds, in fact, who were like just loving trying to figure out how to get us to the next platform. We had to move. We're moving into contracting artists with ACTRA. There's just some logistics that we had to deal with, and we're in a new territory where some of the unions are having to work in different ways, and we're just really asking people to be flexible, and that's been good. This has been the biggest jump. So today's our first day actually in production, where it's not just a Zoom situation. And again, luckily I have experience in television, so I've been sort of walking people through how we do that. And everybody's really excited. Everybody's excited to just be working again. It's been 4 months, and the first time we're sort of all contributing to a piece. So there's a lot of excited great energy in there. But yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing, is just trying to make sure that we can get people to come on and engage in a digital piece. But it's been, I think now that it's been more consistent and everything else we've been finding, it's been pretty successful for us.
We have another question. And the question is, apologies in advance for another COVID-19 related question. Assuming restrictions are lifted, would you see any long-term lingering effects from the epidemic that would prevent theater goers from returning out of health concern?
Yeah, I think, sure. I think we've been doing this for so long with in our own homes and isolated, that I don't know if people are going to want to, even if they've lifted unless we had a vaccine, I still think people are going to want to ease into it. And I'm very much structuring my programming to respect that. And so, yeah, I do think, in some surveys, people have said that as well, that I wouldn't mind going back to the theater, but I don't want to be part of the first wave. I'll come 3 months after it opens.
Yeah.
So, who's actually going to be part of that first 3 months? Who knows? So I think we have to create those first 3 months so that they feel very safe, and that there's lots of ability. That's why I'm saying not traditional theater seats. I don't think we need to, I think we actually need to almost position ourselves more like a gallery, in that you can walk through and experience theatrical pieces, almost like a roving or a promenade show. So yeah, we're definitely trying to ease people in to coming back inside a space.
Mm. I mean, one of the things that we noticed with our pivot was that our audience got really young. Like a big cohort of our, for example, TL Insider members who were older, who liked doing the events in real life, just didn't follow us into the virtual space. Have you been noticing that in terms of the demo profile of your audience? Has it changed a lot, or has it stayed pretty stable?
You know, we different audience members like different programs. I think our Fresh Ink appeals to our core audience. Our coffee concerts definitely do. Some of the other things maybe are younger. I mean, it's hard to tell now that we've used chat. We didn't used to use chat. You would just email in your questions. And I found that with that, it was a lot of our older audiences. With the chat, it's all the younger audiences. So I think they're just in dialogue with us in different ways. Yeah, again, I think it has to do with programming more than the digital space for us.
Yeah. I agree with that. Do we have any other questions from the group before we close this chat? Weyni, you did a great job. That's exactly what happened. Everyone is speechless, but thank you so much for joining us today. It was so fantastic just hearing about I love talking about theater. I love talking about, I love talking about the role theater is going to play, institutions are going to play as we rebuild. And man, just hearing what Soulpepper is doing, I mean, you're kind of killing it. You're kind of crushing it. It's really, really good. So congratulations. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This was our last TL Insider Fireside Chat for the summer. Just to let you guys know, we're actually going to be launching a very intimate pop series. It's going to be very, very intimate in real life events. So we're going to be announcing that very, very soon. And our first slate of events are going to be taking place in the beginning of August. So stay tuned for that announcement. But Weyni, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you everyone for joining us as part of this Fireside Chat. And we look forward to seeing you at some of our future TL Insider experiences. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.